Guess I better find it.
Here, well, hi, I think.
You ready?
I'm ready to go.
All right, everyone, we welcome you to the May, that seems weird to say, Citizen Involvement Committee meeting. We are very excited to have so many people here and so many youngsters. This is wonderful. First of all, one of the delays, we needed to get a sign-up sheet, so we would ask you before you leave, would you please make sure and sign in the back on that little cabinet over there?
There's a clipboard. Sorry.
There's a clipboard. Yeah, we'll make sure your name gets on that, please. We need to have a record of who is here. And if you would like to speak on the agenda, on any item on the agenda or not on the agenda, we need you to fill out a comment card. Unless you're one of the if you're presenting as the presenter, you don't need to. But if you're a citizen just wanting to comment, we need the comment cards are in the back, and you would fill that out and turn it into Christina. There she is. And now Barbara will do the roll call.
When needed.
Okay, Shelley,
Present.
Mark,
We're here.
Anderson, Dennis Anderson,
Here.
Linda Basinger,
Present.
Mike Mitchell,
Here.
Amy Wilhite,
Here.
Joyce Gifford,
Here.
Roy Harris,
Here.
Jesse Buss,
Here.
Gordon Wilson,
Here.
Barbara Rankin, Stephen Hatbeck,
Here.
Karen Morey,
Here.
Gary Fergus,
Here.
Bill McConnell,
Here.
Brian Boyce, Vern Johnson,
Here.
Georgia Reagan, Georgia,
She's here. She's just not in the room right now.
okay, yeah,
She's here-ish.
She was just outside a minute ago.
okay, thank you, that's it.
Okay. We'll quickly move into the presentations. So, fifth grade architects in schools from John McLaughlin. If you would come on up, whoever's doing your main presenting and introduce yourselves. Make sure your speakers are on and you talk into the microphone so that everybody can hear you.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Is it on?
I don't know how to turn these on.
There'd be a little red light on.
Push the button.
If the light's on, then it's working.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. My name is Michelle Young. I'm a fifth grade teacher at John McLaughlin, and my class and I were invited to participate in a project called Architects in Schools, which is put on by the Architecture Foundation of Oregon. And we decided to make it local and relevant. And so we decided to come up with our own adaptive reuse of the Blue Heron Paper Company site. Our program was a 6-week residency with an architect named Connie Hodevek from Ancrom Moisen Architects. We learned a lot of things about basic architecture, environmental factors, seismic retrofitting and liquefaction. We did some blueprints, and we built our own 3D model, which you can see here. This is a unique project specifically related to the Oregon City community. And it's focused on the 4 core values of the Willamette Falls Legacy Project, which are healthy habitat, economic development. I'm blanking because I'm nervous. I'm sorry.
Historic interpretation.
Thank you. Historical and cultural interpretation. And what's the last one?
Public access.
Public access. Thank you. So we put the existing Riverwalk plan into place that is in the framework for the Legacy Project right now, and we are also keeping the main targeted buildings for adaptive reuse. So this is our own rendition of what we think the site should be used for. We had no barriers such as money or other factors to get in our way, so we dreamt big, and we have a big pie-in-the-sky dream. Sorry. Next slide, please.
Apologies.
Okay. In addition to our 6-week residency with our partnered architect, we also had Kelly Reed from Oregon Metro come and talk to our class about the history of the site and the Willamette Falls Legacy Project overview. And she also gave us some design proposals that we could play around with. we had Ben Blessing from the Clackamas County Land Use Planning Division come to share with us about floodplains and natural hazards and GIS mapping. And we did a webinar with Pinar Sozer Lewis from Istanbul Technical University School of Architecture. And she talked to us about other adaptive reuse projects that have used gas chambers to repurpose. So our dream as fifth graders is that we will have a river walk, we'll have a park and green space, we'll have a trampoline gym called Tempest. I'd never heard of it. Parking garage, a gift shop, an outdoor museum, an olive garden, a community garden, mixed-use housing with a Target on the ground floor, and an animal-focused charter school with in-house animal shelter.
I like it.
Okay. So our first place we're going to talk about is by our lovely Boy Scout here, Elias Trusty. He's going to share that and then duck out because he does have to go to his Boy Scout meeting.
So, our core value for the gift shop is the economic development of the falls. And the gift shop would provide jobs and a revenue source for the local economy. The gift shop provides souvenirs for visitors. Some of those things could be plush animals from the region, keychains, hats, shirts, and magnets made by local artisans. Souvenirs that commemorate the area such as wagons, loggings, and the woolen mill. Figurines or bobbleheads of local historical figures. We could also have an indoor viewing area of the river for the visitors to the falls.
You could all be a bobblehead.
Bobbleheads. The mill extends west from Main Street in the woolen mill in this 1955 photo.
So they would plan on using the Mill O to put their gift shop there. And weren't you going to put a Subway in there? Mm-hmm. Okay.
We have it's pretty small.
So this would be in the far corner of this site.
Yes, it's part of the Riverwalk, somewhat. And the rest is right there. Yay.
All right. Thank you,
This
Elias.
is not my department.
Next is the Riverwalk. So Billy. Billy Wharton is speaking on behalf of his group about the Riverwalk.
Thank you, Elias.
Thank you. We are keeping the original, or the current framework plan. That is the orange line on this map.
For the Riverwalk vision, our core value. Oh my gosh. Public access and a healthy environment. For the Riverwalk, we want to have people to see the wildlife and the waterfall. Also, we want them to see the beauty in the falls and the river. We also want people to see how the Native Americans lived and hunt. And for our healthy habitat, we want to not hurt the animals by litter or oil so we can have a good environment. From this photo, we want our river walk to look wonderful as this one.
Now, Billy, in your group, you designed some kind of bridge. Is that what you're envisioning?
Yes, that's supposed to be the bridge. Apparently, we did not see that it was going to get cut off.
Just a little jump.
And what other kinds of things did your group picture for the Riverwalk?
We kind of pictured for people to see, so right here for them to see the river splashing up, and we wanted, at first, we kind of wanted to have glass so people could see, but now that we see that near the river, we decided to do a bridge instead.
Very good. Thank you, Billy.
You're welcome.
Now, we didn't actually have anyone brave enough from the park group to come, but Hannah Gobin is willing to present on behalf of that group. So she is going to share about our vision for the park space.
For the park space, we will be using the clarifier and Mill E to turn that into our park space. That will include a play structure, outdoor movie theater, a dog park, and a green space. Our core values for the park space is public access and healthy habitats. We also have historical features, a viewing area. The reason we think we should have this in Oregon City is because we don't have many parks, and homes are taking up a lot of the green space.
All right. Thank you, Hannah. And Tate Flowers is speaking on behalf of his group about the Tempest Trampoline Gym.
So our core value is economic development. We want to have Tempest there because we think that it would be a good entertainment factor, and we don't have a Tempest in Oregon, and we think that people could get a good exercise while they're jumping too. For green energy, we want to have wind turbines on the top of the building, and then we will try and use the kinetic energy from the jumping.
That's a great idea.
We are also doing a parking garage, and I think that we should have a green wall for healthy habitats there. And then here's a video about what Tempest is like.
Is it I don't know if the video
I don't
came
think it
through.
turned
I'm
up as a
sorry.
video. I thought it was just a picture.
I watched it a couple times. It should be a video, but
This went to a PDF, so I don't think we can play the video.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Transformed it.
sorry.
this is the flour mill building that we will be using for the Tempest building. We're in a multi-level parking garage, and that will be for public access. We decided to do the parking garage because we would need a large parking space because if a lot of people were going to attend, and the other groups didn't have the space for parking, and we had extra space, so we decided to use that. We decided on the green wall to make it more environmentally friendly, and the parking garage will be where the D-Inc. building currently is.
We were originally going to put the trampoline where the D-Inc. building is, but we decided that we would rather have people jumping and facing the river so there would be big windows where people could jump and face the river and take in the beauty while they're having a good time.
And then that's a picture of where the parking garage would be.
And Tate, you designed an elevator for the parking garage. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
That would be so that you wouldn't have to use a long staircase or anything, so that you wouldn't have to take a long time to get up and down from the top to the bottom or wherever you're parked.
Was the elevator for cars or people?
For people.
Oh, I thought it was for cars.
Oh, the car one would be really cool.
All right, thank you, Tate. Up next is Angela Saltenberger to talk about the Outdoor Museum.
Our core value is historical and cultural interpretation. I think we should have a museum in Oregon City because we don't have many around the area. The closest one we have is Portland, which isn't that far away, but we do not have many in Oregon. And I think it would attract more tourists to the area. It should have many historical features, including facts about the site and possibly a fossil room. It should have a place where you can see a documentary about a person who has lived around the site and knows many things about it and can explain them to you very well. We are reusing the Woolen Mills part of the site,
and of course changing what the building originally was. We are going to keep the foundation of the brick wall, considering it's an outdoor museum. We just will not have a roof. Now you might be thinking, well, it rains a lot here in Oregon, so what are we going to do when it rains and you have no roof? I thought maybe we could put a retractable see-through cover that you could put over when it starts to rain. And our second building is where most of our exhibits are. I'm not quite sure what it used to be, but that would be most of our exhibits because we have two buildings. And it would provide public access to locals and tourists. It provides historical and cultural interpretation, of course, when you're looking at the historical exhibits. It would have a small garden with some plants that have been around for a long time. For instance, maybe a small pine tree, because they have been around this area for a long time. And it will get money from people who want to see the museum, and that helps our economic development. Of course, we sort of changed the inside of the woolen mill part of the building. We split it into two rooms, one for a screening area for the documentary and one for picnic tables and a food stand in the old woolen mill building.
And weren't you thinking the food stand would be local foods?
Yes, healthy local produce.
And here is some pictures of the site.
The foundation of the original woolen mill on Main Street, mill shown in the second picture, it shows mill shown here in 1904 remain on the site, operated into a new structure and an open space.
Thank you, Angela. Up next is Tylee Martin to talk about our image for the Olive Garden.
Okay, so a lot of us know that there is not an Olive Garden in Oregon City, so our plan was to, since it's economic development, we were going to add something in Oregon City that we don't already have. We thought that since we have a space on the boiler, so we thought that it would be a nice space for a fancy area because it's right next to a park and it's right next to the water. So when you look out of the windows, you can see the river just flowing by, and I thought that would be a really nice place to just eat there and relax. What we're going to be including is a community garden, a rooftop garden for fresh produce, and we're going to have an outdoor seating area or eating area. Well, we're going to have extra things there because for the outdoor seating area, we can see the falls, so that's going to be a really nice place to eat. We can also well, the community garden is so that people that don't have like yards, because I know in Portland there wasn't a lot of yards because it was a very big city, so it had small yards. So a lot of people don't have the advantage of having a garden, so it would be really good for the community to have that, and it would be a very pretty sight too. So that's where we're going to have it. I'm not sure where it is.
Far left.
So we're going to have that as the Olive Garden and the community garden.
And one of my favorite conversations from this project is this restaurant actually had to negotiate park space that was going to be used for the park space, and they traded with the park space. They'd go, "Okay, come on, just give us the space," and they're like, "We promise we'll do something green with it." So that's where the community garden comes from, because it was originally going to be park space, but they these economic developers came in and they wanted more space for their building, and they ended up getting their way as long as they had a community garden.
Good job.
Thank you, Tylee. And next up is Quentin Hopp to talk about mixed-use housing.
Our core value is another economic development, and my project is mixed-use housing. One of the reasons I think that we should have more mixed-use housing is because there's not many of them, and another reason is that elders might not want to live in a home, and they might just want a place to live, like away from home, and that would be better for them because there's a store right below there. So they could just, instead of having to go drive somewhere, they can just walk down the stairs, take the elevator. And at the bottom of the mixed-use housing there is a Target, so I thought that would be a good idea because there's not many Targets in Oregon. So I think that would be a good place because it's a lot closer in our area.
Thank you, Quentin. Up next is Erin Burkhart with the Animal Focused Charter School.
Okay, so my group's idea was making an animal-focused charter school, mainly because some people, they'll go to school and most of the time you learn math and reading and science, and those are good to learn, but some people, they need but some people, if they're getting a certain job, they need beforehand a little bit more experience. So this is a high school for kids interested in being vets or like anything related with animals, because the class voted on an animal shelter, but we thought we had one of the options being a school, so Miss Young gave us a huge building, but we didn't want a huge animal shelter, so we decided to add a charter school into there. So inside the building there's a animal shelter that the students can visit, but also it's open to the public. So our core value was public access. We designed, I already said that. We also have a green roof with a, what's it called? One of those solar discs that sometimes you see on top of a house to power the electricity inside of school from the sun. And to get to the green roof, there is fresh produce, fruits, and vegetables that they're going to be using in the cafeteria lunch. So there's not just like crappy food in the lunch. There's actually healthy stuff.
Good description.
So yeah, we had a video there of the building, but we can't play it. So that's the building. We're using the number 4 paper mill. As you can tell, it's pretty big with all the windows. And since we have a tall building, we wanted to make 2 levels. So we didn't add all the windows, but we're having a gym on one of the top levels, which is going to be, we're going to use all those windows, and we're going to make it big and open because there's no track or outside really around our building. So we want to have it so the kids can run around, but also see out to the river and see all the other buildings and like the outdoor museum and all that. So yeah.
Thank you, Erin. And up next, that was supposed to go with Quentin's slide. That's what they're readapting as the mixed-use area with the Target on the bottom and the apartments on the top. That's the Holly building. Sorry, that got out of order. Okay, so thank you to my wonderful students who came this evening to present. They were all very nervous, but they all did a wonderful job. And thank you. And in conclusion, our project incorporates all 4 of the core values that Willamette Falls Legacy Project already has in place. We have a mix of local businesses and national chains that we feel would be relevant in Oregon City. We have adaptive reuse of most of the buildings on the sites, and we have utilized many sustainable practices while maintaining a large area of green space. And we are also, our exhibition is going to be on Thursday at First Thursday in the Pearl District. We'll be at our partnered architects firm, Ancrum Moisen. Our project will be displayed there as part of First Thursday this week. So if you want to stop by First Thursday and check out our work and the work of other schools in the state, please come by and do that. And also the real revealing of the Riverwalk design is going to be June 3rd at OMSI. So thank you for your time. And is there time for questions? Or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think you have a couple minutes.
Yes. Just so that you know, if you want to watch the video, it will be online.
and you can watch the video. It'll probably show your faces. I know your parents. Yeah, it takes a couple days. Sometimes it's faster. But then you might be able to see your faces you're presenting too. So if you go to the city's website under agendas and videos, then look for the Citizen Involvement Committee meeting, and it'll be there. Any questions? Mark?
So your all your work that your students did, it's being shuffled through the partnership?
Yes.
Good. Okay, that's making sure that happens. All right.
Yeah.
Good.
I had that same question. Any other questions?
One comment.
Karen?
I just have to chuckle a little bit. There is a museum in Oregon City that was designed by your architect. It's called the Museum of the Oregon Territory.
Karen's our museum expert.
And I saw Moisen's name on lots of the plans.
We had to finish when her time was up, so.
Good job, guys. Thank you very much.
The individual pieces?
Yeah.
Can we just break and look?
Certainly.
Sure.
Okay, let's take a break and look.
And then I can talk for a second about next steps for Willamette Falls, if that's okay.
To the what?
I just wanted to say that we're also potentially working to see if we can get this in the June 3rd event in the lobby at
that'd be
OMSI.
great.
So we're still working on logistics, but we hope to have that available so everyone can come up and see it when you go between 1 to 5 on June 3rd, open house, and hopefully we'll have this in the lobby.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break. All right, back on to. Okay, I passed away my agenda, so I have to look around here.
Oh, wait, here.
Okay, Brooke Williams Consulting. There's not very many choices, so I'm guessing that's you. Come on up and talk about the real Riverwalk.
Well, thank you. I think the previous presentation, though, was a really good start.
They did great. If you just introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Rick Williams. I'm president of Rick Williams Consulting. We're a parking and transportation demand management firm located here in Portland. Not Oregon City, in Portland. I'm sorry, not here, in Portland. But I think Christina's going to lead it off because she's got some slides up front, and then I'll take it from there.
Thanks,
So thank
Rick.
you for the opportunity.
I just have a couple upfront slides to get everyone in context, and then I'll send it back to Rick, who has all the good meaty stuff. So as part of, this is me, as part of the walk preferred design and phase 1 plan, a transportation access and management plan, we call it transportation and management plan, is a requirement. And so rather than kind of putting a list of what we think we can do, but not really have community buy-in, we wanted to make sure that we reached out to the community and kind of got the universe of ideas. Some of them will be implemented in phase 1, but this is a document that is looking at long-term, both private and public implementation, and kind of all the tools in the toolbox and the strategy of how and when to use those tools. So just a little reminder, as part of the framework plan, there's 3 approved off-site transportation safety improvements that are going to be on 99E. And on the map, it shows A, B, and C. And those are required through our negotiation with ODOT for the rezone. And that is working with them on new lighting underneath the tunnel and a new early warning signal as you go northbound on the tunnel. B is a realignment of Railroad Avenue. Right now, as you're pedestrian and you leave the tunnel, you pretty much are right at Railroad Avenue, and it's a pretty tight conflict between pedestrians. So there's going to be a real abbreviated deceleration lane and a little bit of an island. So as a pedestrian, you kind of walk out into a little bit of a refuge before you cross Railroad Avenue. And then where C is, the idea is that you can get onto the mill site either through Water Avenue, which is where C is located, and either access the site through Water and 4th Street on the site or through Main Street. At Water Street and 99E, there's going to be a right-in, right-out limitation. So you cannot take a left on that curve because that's not safe. So those have certain triggers based on different levels of development. So as the development reaches its particular trigger for each particular project, those will be built. So all the tools we're talking about are kind of things that are not related to specific kind of 99E safety improvement projects. But why are we doing this? Because we all want not only the Riverwalk to be successful, but we also want to make sure private development is successful. So as private development comes in, this transportation access plan is also looking at potential tools the private side can use when they come in. So once again, we're looking at the universe of options and then kind of giving direction about how best both the public and the private side can use these tools. So we've created 3 meetings that are not an advisory group, but we're really asking, and because I came to you last month, we're really asking all of the committees to provide representation at these kind of summits, to be able to be kind of the liaison back and forth. So what information can I back to my committee? What am I listening to my committee so I can bring forth to those meetings? And kind of the large goals of the plan is to reach shared understanding with all the stakeholders of all kind of the universe of tools, create a long-term metric-based strategy, and I'm a big fan of using data to help us make decisions. And how do we create data to help us make those decisions? Achieve Planning Commission approval of the strategy. And so this plan does not stay on a bookshelf. We have actionable next steps that we can do as a city and our stakeholders can do. And maybe even we revisit this over the next couple of years to see how we are working on our kind of tools that maybe be required as part of a Riverwalk or private development, or just maybe things both maybe downtown is working on to help with their downtown parking strategy, or maybe things McLaughlin wants to work on, and we can kind of continue that conversation. Where we are in the Riverwalk, we're finalizing the preferred design. The June 3rd event is at OMSI, 1 to 5 on a Saturday. At that event, you'll see identification of Phase 1 of the Riverwalk. That will then move forward to Planning Commission review in the fall or winter, and we hope by next summer to start initial construction and site readiness next summer. So I'm going to pass it back to Rick to talk a little bit about those universe of tools.
And the clicker has disappeared, so I might be turning to Christine every now and then and asking her to switch the slides. So hopefully that doesn't.
Well, that's okay. We can't see them on our screen either. We're training our
I can't turn mine. Sorry.
So
do you want to switch seats?
Next slide, Christine.
Did none of them work? No, but then at least we could see without.
As Christina said, we had our first summit the other night, and we had 30 people come, which was really great. And the purpose at this point in the process is try to get everybody on the same page as to what does it mean to manage parking, and then what does it mean to do transportation demand management. And so we did some of that, and I'll do a little bit of that tonight with you. And then we broke up into groups and asked people to take those sort of industry best practice standards for parking management and for transportation demand management and say, if you think about the Riverwalk in its first phase, and then you think about that picture that Christina showed you, where we want to go, what elements of parking management appeal to you? What elements of transportation demand management appeal to you? And which of them maybe don't? Which ones give you pause, particularly for this location in your downtown? So again, right now we're trying to create a toolkit of solutions. We haven't preferred any of the toolkits in the toolbox. It's just getting people to understand them. One thing we did learn is that most people think that parking is the only solution, is that everybody's going to drive here, and so that's what we need to focus on. But it's just one form of trip capacity. I have a parking guy. I've been doing this for 30 years. I have what I call my theory of the universe, which is the universe of trips. And the more options that we create, parking being one of them, the more trips we can get into our destination with the least amount of adverse impacts possible. And so, transportation demand management, biking, walking, transit, plus parking expands the capacity of how many people can come at one time. And so that's what we're trying to do, is find the right balance of parking and transportation demand management. And so capacity is really created for the entire universe of trips. So what we're going to do for you tonight is not take you through the whole thing we went with the stakeholders, but the first thing we know about parking management, I asked a question of the group the other night and asked them to raise their hand. People in the room have ever driven a car. And it's a fair question. And everybody had raised their hand. And so everybody knows parking. Everybody who's driven a car has experienced it. It's one of the few professions in the industries out there where everybody is an expert. Everybody's done it. And we recognize that. But the challenge that people sometimes have, the old saying of, you'll pull my cold dead hands off my wheel, is there are people who don't have cars. They're dependent on alternative modes. There are working families that have one car and 2 employees. And so it's important for us to understand that parking is really about getting the right car to the right parking space. And that's the basis of parking management. But we also have to say that when we put the right car in the right parking space, at every stall that we create, we know who its primary user is supposed to be. And we gave the example of if an employee parks in front of a retail store, the capacity of that parking stall is basically one trip, because that vehicle will be there all day. If I can get that car to another spot, a better right spot, or into another mode, here in Oregon City, the average retail stall downtown turns over 5 times a day. So the capacity of that stall just went from 1 to 5. And so that's a key element of parking management. So one of the things we're going to do in the summit is talk about who should park where. Questions like, should employees park on street? Should employees park in neighborhoods? Should residents park on street in retail areas? There are no right or wrong answers, but it's how we answer the question that will create the parking management toolbox that we have. Good information needs to be in place because we need to separate. Could you hit the slide?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We need to separate the myths from the reality because parking is a very emotional issue. And so this little box at the top is just a simple technique that we've created using color to determine how we measure the performance of our system. We want our system to operate in the yellow zone. So there's always high activity in the area, which creates a robust and vital area. But we don't get into the red area where it's constrained, which creates frustration and other issues, traffic congestion and things that are detrimental to the area. Next. So data is a part of good parking management. It's a key principle. We realize that parking is very, very expensive. We're not saying to anybody, we don't want you to park. We simply want to say to people, we want you to park in the right space. We're going to manage parking. And if you don't want to come by car, we've got some other options for you. So data is a fundamental element of parking management. And these last couple pictures that have come up, Oregon City's in a good position because we've already collected a lot of data here. And we just completed a data collection effort in 2016. So we have a lot of good information to create a good parking management plan. Next slide. As I said, parking is very expensive. So what it costs to build a parking stall is treat it like a mortgage on your house. The average parking stall costs about $35,000 to build. And so if you mortgage $35,000 for 20 years at 5%, your mortgage payment is going to be between $197 and $247 per stall per month. The key is also we want to right-size parking, leverage it with alternative modes of access, because we have to pay the mortgage on it. As the person, some of you may have heard of Dr. Donald Shoup, who wrote the book, The High Cost of Free Parking, is that somebody pays. If we could spread the cost of parking into all 4 of those boxes, more people pay a less amount. If we start eliminating people from having to pay or entities from having to pay, so if we say we're going to take everybody out of the red box at the top right, that means we're just spreading the mortgage to the 3 boxes that are left. If we take the tenant out of it, then we're going to push it all to the 2 boxes. So we spend a lot of times with cities with a box just like this saying if we have to build a parking facility, how many stalls do we need? How can we balance it with good alternative mode options? And then how are we going to pay for it? Why transportation demand management? I'll go back to that saying I said about people because we've had it. You'll pull my cold dead hands off my steering wheel in my town. But we don't want people to feel that way. What we're learning is people like options. So I gave you the examples of of people who are just simply don't have cars and are sort of alternative mode dependent. But people like the options. What's also happening is that the demographics in America are beginning to change rapidly. Millennials don't necessarily want to own cars. In the state of Washington, nearly 50% of everybody between the ages of 16 and 24 have yet to get their driver's license. So it's a changing dynamic. Real estate agents now, when they're leasing out space or getting tenants who used to say, the first thing would say, how many stalls per 1,000 square feet do I get? Now they're saying, do we have shower and locker facilities? Do we have storage facilities for our bikes? Is it safe to get here? Can I take transit at night? So TDM is simply recognizing that we can create additional capacity beyond what parking can do for us, balanced with parking. And also, it takes up a lot less area. Would we rather put too much parking in and use valuable land that could be put into really cool land uses like the kids showed us tonight? Or do we overbuild the parking? So what we're really looking at as we create the Riverwalk plan is the perfect balance of parking and transportation demand management. What we're also learning in the literature is there's a direct correlation between vibrant communities and transportation demand management. And we're starting to hear the buzzwords now. So you think of any successful town that just pops to your mind, and the word walkability comes up. Developers now are looking at areas to develop it in, and the first thing they'll ask people like me is, what's the walk score? Because there's a national ranking system for walkability. Connectivity, affordability, those are all the buzzwords in the industry now. So I don't think we're really doing parking management or transportation demand management. What we eventually want to do is access management. Create as many options as possible so people have all different ways to come, and then we'll maximize the capacity of what we have. So again, we have a lot of ideas, and what we found is that the stakeholders that we worked with the other night have even more. So this is just simply a list of ideas that are starting to come out. But when you think about what's my parking management toolbox, it's really not so much about finding the tools. The toolbox has been there for 50 years. The biggest thing that's changed is the technology. The key is when you take the tool out of the box and apply it. So something you've already done in your downtown that many downtowns don't have is you actually have paid parking. Many cities are on the cusp, and it's a really hard transition to go from free parking to paid parking. So you've already taken that tool out of the toolbox and applied it. But we can do other things like getting more clear on who should be parking on street in paid stalls. Oregon City still has a lot of employees who park on street with a permit in the retail area. That's a tool that was applied, but if we use data to say how occupied is the downtown, are we denying customers access to prime space because employees are in certain areas? We may have to pull another tool out of the toolbox, which is getting employees into off-street facilities and possibly then generating new supply around that. So all this really is just a list of the many tools that can be in your toolbox. What we want to do with the stakeholders next time is compile their list of ideas and put them in spatial time. Well, these would be great strategies for phase one. We may not need a parking garage. We may need a parking lot. We may be looking at remote supplies. We could use shuttles. We could extend transit service through the downtown now down to the new site. So it's a phase one strategy. As I get to new supply, we want to talk about new supply in the beginning and new supply at full build-out. TDM strategies are really less varied, I would say. The most common strategy that gives you the most capacity is simply augmenting the transit service you have. Right now, we need to look at the frequency of transit service that will run from the core of the downtown into this new site. Where would new bus stops be? You don't have to do much in terms of trying to attract transit here. It's how to use the transit service you have to create access into the new area without taking up much land. I mean, the land you might be taking up is a transit stop, and the attractiveness of it will be the frequency of the service. Bicycle infrastructure. Bicycles are the cheapest form of access there is. Right now, when you have parking, The key to TDM is balancing the relationship between the cost of parking and the cost of all other options. So if it costs me, if it doesn't cost me anything to park, but it costs me $100 a month to get a transit pass, if I can drive, I'm probably going to want to drive because it's cheaper to drive than it is to take transit. So we need to work those relationships to slowly create sort of a balance between when I make a choice, it's about what mode works best for me today. It shouldn't be about this one's cheaper. But biking is technically free, although some people have $5,000 bikes. But it's a very efficient form of access. But in Oregon, it's also seasonal. It could be very seasonal as well. Car sharing and ride sharing service, Uber, Lyft, self-driving cars, they're all coming huge into this market in the next 10 to 15 years. I have nephews and sons who are millennials, don't own cars, and they've got this. Mm-hmm. It's Uber, it's Car2Go, it's Reach, and Lyft, and that's what they do. Walkability and wayfinding are going to be very key to you, particularly as how people can get into and out of this area, and also the relationship that Christina also talked about with 99. Education, incentive programs, and in the long scale, when you get to that build-out position, considering nonprofit organizations called transportation management associations that would actually be business associations providing access management to your downtown. So again, these are other TDM toolbox ideas. A new pedestrian bridge, construction of surface or structured parking on or off-site. Shuttles, one thing we did here over and over with the stakeholders is shuttles, is connecting remote areas where parking may be cheaper to acquire and running those into the downtown. Expansion of the city permit parking areas to ensure that neighborhoods are protected so that overspill is something that's very sensitive and it needs to be addressed, and there are toolbox strategies that you can do to do that. And then creating, over time, dynamic pricing. In your downtown, where it might be more expensive to park on a peak day and much less expensive to park when the occupancies are lower.
Oh, this is just more.
Oh, this is more. Like I said, these are just, we're getting tons of ideas, so you can see them. But there's lots of boat and water access I thought was really good. The best idea that's not up there now was the zip line. I think the kids here would have liked that. But everybody in the room thought it, particularly if it went over the falls, it would be awesome. So just in summary, right now, again, it was getting everybody on the same page, Parking 101, TDM 101, and then starting to run all these ideas through that filter. What comes out the other side are things that people like, things that people don't like, and then we want to start to filter them down into points in time, near-term, immediate, near-term, mid-term, and long-term. So with that, thank you.
And I just wanted to add that I can send out again, but we have a little miniature parking TDM access page on Rediscover the Falls that kind of keeps you up to date with all the documents so far and the dates and the meetings. And the 3 questions that were asked at the event last Wednesday are now up in a form, like a little survey you can fill out. So I will send that link out to the group probably tomorrow, and then you can kind of follow it as we go forward. But we had a really good meeting last week, and I just really,
Wonderful.
The power of everybody's ideas, as well as my belief that data will help us and save us. And I think between the creative ideas and use of strategic kind of tools when the data tells us to, is kind of, I'm excited about how we take the conundrum of how do we create this amazing place on this peninsula next to a linear downtown that's between a cliff and a cliff, and how do we feel that this is an amazing addition to our downtown, but it doesn't overwhelm the community so they no longer want it there. So I think parking and how we go about parking and the universe of trips is a great way to think about it. So I'm really excited.
All right, any questions? Put up here. Mike?
So on your triangles,
Yeah.
so you average peak and non-peak times to come up with a score?
Yeah. It's based on what's called the 85% rule, which is an
And that's
industry,
where you want to be.
which is an industry standard for measuring the performance of a system. If you're over 85%, it's good for a time, but you're congested to the point that particularly visitors feel angst. Their angst level goes up, and their experience with an area goes down. So if you can get into that yellow box, you're doing two things. One, you're creating a high enough volume of trips to support very vital and active businesses, and also to be attractive to other businesses that would have come into downtown. When you fall below that, I won't mention names, but there are cities in Oregon where their peak hour parking is like 40%. Well, and it reflects, so there's lots of parking, so the good is drive a car. The bad news is it doesn't support vital retail. What it means is they don't have a parking problem, which means they have a product problem. Oregon City doesn't have that. Your product is really good, and like Christina said, that's what we want to preserve and promote and protect.
Do you have a number on what downtown Oregon City is now?
Yeah. If in the peak hour, if you can go back, let's go right there first. This is the on-street system combined. So so if you go forward now, so it's about 66% occupied in the peak hour. But what's interesting, if you look at the red bars, so that's your combined supply, but you can see there's a lot of red in your system, which means we need to find solutions to that, and as we extend into the Riverwalk area, to make sure we're not extending red, we're extending yellow down there. But you'll also see there's a lot of green next to the red. So another strategy in our toolbox is how do we get people from the red into the green, and who are the appropriate people to take from red and put them in the green. So yeah, we have data. We have good data. So it's about a 66% now in the peak hour, which is a general number. But you can see we do these heat maps, and we can identify where you have constraints.
Thank you.
Mark?
Yeah, my only, just to drill it down to what the message is that it seems like the Blue Heron site is basically being developed for the riverfront and for a parking lot, correct, in the first phase? That's what we're pretty much getting. We're not getting any new buildings. We're not getting any developers coming in here and building buildings. The first phase is basically to improve the river and basically put a parking more storage, parking storage for downtown. Is that kind of a executive summary of the first phase?
I'm going to take the first one, which is, yes, the Riverwalk. The first phase of development on site will be the Riverwalk because we have funding and we can move forward. The site is rezoned private development. When the market is ready, it can move forward whenever they want. So it's really a market test right now for the private development. But everything is ready for them to move forward as well. And these kind of universe of tools are helpful as private development moves forward for kind of land use approval and development applications. The interim access parking options is still being worked on. So I don't quite have I don't have a kind of direction on where and how big any interim on-site parking may be for the Riverwalk, but we're working on it.
Another thing I would suggest is, as we break the tools out, so potentially a phase one strategy could be parking, but it would probably be small, and you wouldn't want to have it tie up the site and future development potentials. So there's going to be a parking strategy. But I also think we need to look at when we engage conversations with TriMet about, can we improve frequencies through the downtown now? Can we get buses that are at the transit station to go all the way through? What are our bike connections? Can we start bringing those online sooner? What are the connections to the neighborhoods, the safe connections? A lot of the stakeholders in near-term strategies, how do we get over 99? Do we have to go across it? Can we go over it? Can we go under it? I'm not sure. But I think, so your question is a good one. I think parking will be a part of it, but I think the more we accelerate near-term strategies, particularly transit with existing infrastructure, I think we should do it if we can.
Yeah, my question was going because of the logistics of these sites and what it is. You have to have a pretty good-sized company coming in and taking this whole site and then developing it under one umbrella, one plan, and that's why you're phasing and piecemealing it together.
Good point.
For what I've done, my research is that the city hasn't purchased any of the property. They have easements for the waterfront, and so I can understand what you're doing as far as trying to make it more livability and trying to improve the the downtown parking situation. So that's why I asked the question.
Good question.
Is this first phase mainly focused on relieving the parking problem for downtown, which sometimes might end up being stagnating this development. Once we get used to the parking, that site, which is a very good site for a lot of things, is being used for quote unquote a parking lot. And that's something that some people might not find very useful, since we're facing a $40,000 per household discrepancy between our city and the household. I think jobs are more important than parking, but that's just my opinion.
Oh, that's really good input. Thank you.
Gordon?
Yeah, I was just curious. Have you seen the TriMet's Max Master Plan? Do you know if they're going to bring it through there to go to Canby, like in 30 years or something? Or
There used to be an alignment that extended from Milwaukee to here, but I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure where that is.
Sure. Just because I was thinking maybe they should plan that if it's coming through in the future. But
Linda?
I was just curious why this was going to be unveiled in OMSI, which is in Portland and Multnomah County, and this is kind of an Oregon City Clackamas project.
Well, that's a really good question.
It's on the orange line.
What is? No, I think that's, the success of the Willamette Falls Legacy Project. It's a for-government entity, Oregon City, Clackamas County Metro, and the state of Oregon. Money from all four government entities came in to create the money for the first phase. And I'm a fervent believer that I see kind of as a ladder of recognition. So first, we started out with the Legacy Project, kind of Gladstone, Oregon City, Westland. We knew it was kind of this little kind of sub-regional project. And then we said, well, in order to get money to build the Riverwalk, this needs to turn into a region-wide project, and Metro put in up to $5 million worth of lottery-backed bonds. So we had to raise, understanding. Then also, this is a state-level project, and so we were able to receive funding from the state legislature, both $5 million first time and $7.5. So we have $12.5 million from the state legislature. But this is also a West Coast and a national project. I mean, this project has importance all over, and I really see Oregon City as the ambassadors. So how we can kind of continue to educate both the region and the state about the importance of Willamette Falls, and how we, let's see my thing, that's how we are able to get future funding, how we can potentially get more development interest here. So I kind of really see it as the evangelical bus up 99E to OMSI. So when the elected officials from outside our region, people who are coming to OMSI, people who are interested in the four core values, especially healthy habitat. Maybe you live in Beaverton, but healthy habitat's a passion of yours, and you volunteer for environmental organizations in Oregon. You start hearing about this. You start supporting the project, and that's how we get more funding. So that's kind of my back is why is it in Portland? Because this is a statewide project, and so we need to be able to go out and kind of tell our story outside of Oregon City.
Very good, thank you.
Joyce?
Okay, so as the official CIC rep to that particular meeting, if you guys recall that I was voted into that position, let me just kind of give my perspective as being a participant in that. And so we, watched the program, and then we divided into 5 groups. And that's where the ideas get thrown out. I mean, just everything is available. So when PRAC, the week before, had done a Falls tour, had heard that part of the mill on the West Lynn side is no longer in use. They've kind of shut down some of those buildings, only partially using the buildings. I thought, well, wow, we could, what about parking on that side and having water taxis or something to bring people across to the site? So that came up. I think our group was also the one with the zip lines. So, I mean, but thinking outside the box. And in fact, some of the structures that are there, possible underground parking, would take very little rehab of some of a couple of the buildings that are currently there, a possibility of doing some underground parking with shops on the level above. So it's always good to hear lots of different ideas, but my favorite vision coming away from there was a lot of the parking being down at the end of the Oregon Trail site, down by the train station, and having bicycles or little pedicabs. I'm thinking like Seaside, when you go down there in the summertime and you see families rent those little 4-bicycle Surreys, I guess, you know, and traveling around and finding an access from that parking lot across around the Cove, and then around through Clackamas Park and across the Willamette Terrace, and then down to the fall site, and all the way along, and seeing tourists that entire distance. So, and as former Mayor Doug Neely pointed out, sometimes the falls are closed. The dam is closed because they're doing PGE work out there, or for whatever reason. But there's still a lot of that river walk that has just beautiful views of the river. Mm-hmm. And so taking advantage of all of that. And a pedestrian bridge over from the West Lynn Mill over to the Oregon City Mill site was something that came up. So it was a lot of ideas came out of that. And I know Mike was there, and as one of the PRAC representatives, Jesse was there. And I didn't get a chance to stay for that last final wrap-up. I had another meeting that I needed to be running to. So if anybody else that was there wants to throw in a word or two about what you saw.
Silence. All right, any other questions?
I think that was more of a roundtable discussion than a question, so.
Oh, and Mike's idea wasn't it your idea to shut down Railroad Avenue for traffic completely and have that just Railroad Avenue being pedestrian friendly? And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's a lot of parking spots on Railroad Avenue. So Mike, what are we doing? We can't take them away. But you got to think outside the box. Let's find another solution.
Yep. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Do we have any public comments for items not on the agenda? Any cards come in, Christina?
Not that I know of. If anybody filled one out.
Yeah. Tom, did you fill one out?
Tom, our sole public.
All right. We will move on to our work items. Okay. It's already 8:15, so.
Well, the work item, your Neighborhood Association handout that I have attached, it's a nice 2-pager that I apologize, this was, if you click on it, I was unable to make photocopies today. There was a snafu today with my life, so I apologize, was able to make copies. So what I can do is I'm going to make 200 copies and leave them at will call at City Hall right here tomorrow. And just over the next couple weeks, if you want to come on in and just grab a chunk anytime that hours are open, I could also potentially send them over to the library as well. I don't know what would be easier for this group. If there's people that work during the day and can't get access during the day, if you wanted to pick up some to bring to your next meeting.
Yeah, maybe you could send an email reminder, and then those that need special access could arrange something.
I can do that. Yeah. So that's the first part. The second part, as part of the last goal for the CIC was to create a toolkit for neighborhood associations. So tonight, really, being my first meeting, I'm not really ready to present to you this perfect, well-done toolkit. And actually, I feel like even if I did, I want to make sure that this group has ownership of it. Because I could, write down every tool I could think of and explain it and bring people in. But as you know, reports and PAC tools only get used when people take ownership on them. So what I'd like to do tonight, if possible, is kind of hear from you about the tools that you see may be valuable to add, and I can do more research and maybe come back with an initial list, or how you really want to see this product be created. People always say the best way to get people to a neighbor association is to have a controversial development application, but that's so sad, right? That's the thing the whole idea with this toolkit is let's have these other things that bring people to neighborhood association meetings, and not the angry, I'm here because I got this letter in my, because those people usually aren't sustainable members. They're there because they're unhappy about that thing, and then they go away. And so how do you use these tools to allow and grow your neighborhood associations to have sustainable members, and to have members that want to get engaged in livability projects and other things that make your neighborhood a special place to be, and not rely kind of on more the contentious development applications as a way to kind of bring people in. So I'm going to kind of bring it back to you, Amy, and kind of get more direction of what you see the goal of this toolbox.
I'd like to not recreate the wheel, and I think that if we pull out the public involvement plan that was created, that we adopted, I think that would be a better starting spot than from scratch.
Okay.
Because, again, I'd rather not, start from the bottom floor.
The only thing, kind of from what I was hearing you say, the public involvement plan did a good job of here's ways to reach out to people, ways to get people in the loop. Are you talking more about a way to actually engage them once they're there and keep them engaged?
Yes. Maybe that's how I interpret it. So if that's a piece of it, maybe I can hear from this group of what you would like to get out of a toolbox for neighborhood associations that are more than just here are different ways of getting information out.
Yeah, because that sounds like a good outgrowth of the public information plan, as long as it doesn't recreate what we already spent far too many meetings doing.
Yeah, that's why I think it would be nice to have something to start in front of us to look at and then build on.
Okay.
And maybe there's questions that we could ask ourselves in between this meeting and another meeting that would help. Because sometimes when you're just brainstorming, like right now, I had no previous thoughts coming into it, and so it's going to be kind of the deer in the headlights.
No, you don't have to. It's more
if we had came up with questions we could be asking ourselves that we could come back with at the next meeting, that might be helpful in our thoughts. Mark?
Yeah, there's a conflict. Like I don't know about anybody else's bylaws, but our neighborhood association isn't part of the CIC. So to basically, in essence, we're members of the neighborhood association. As CIC members, we're elected by the neighborhood association. So it is not transferable. A neighborhood association is its own entity, as Laura Tyrwell has already indicated that in her email that was recently given out. So I think the confusion is that the CIC member is also speaking for the neighborhood association, which is not true. They are the representative of that neighborhood association to the CIC board. They don't replace the CIC, the NAs. So there's a confusion of what our roles are, CIC, and what our NAs are. Because our neighborhood association does not have a bylaw, does not have a subcommittee.
Mark, I'm going to stop you for a second.
Well, excuse me, let me finish.
No, because you're reading. I'm going to stop you, Mark.
Why?
Let me answer this. You're going on and on and on, and you're repeating the same parts.
Well,
The question here is not anything, we're not assigning any responsibility to the neighborhood association. We, as the CIC, part of our things that we wrote in our goals was to get more people involved. That's what all we're talking about.
Right, and that's what I'm saying is, and that's my point, the CIC shouldn't be the people who says how the neighborhood association should decide how we get our members involved.
It's a toolbox. We're coming up with ideas that the neighborhood can look at, and then you as a neighborhood can say, and you're not held responsible to do this. It's just ideas of ways that you could look at, because I know from Gaffney Lane there's only a few people that might get involved, and if they have to come up with the ideas, it's not going to happen. So we wrote goals for the CIC, and that was just to get people involved, and that's all we're trying to do. Come up with ideas that then the neighborhoods, your neighborhood, will take and can use it, they can grow from it, but sometimes the neighborhoods just are looking for help, and we're just,
I understand that, and my point, if I can reiterate, is the neighborhood associations should be left up to them.
it is, this has nothing to do with it. No, I'm not going to argue this anymore, we're done.
I wasn't, I was
You're
trying
done.
to finish it.
No, we're done. I've already said, they're not held to, they don't have to use anything, we're just coming up with ideas. We're done.
Again, I'll reiterate the fact
No,
that
we are
the
done,
CI
Mark. You're
the
done.
fact that our bylaws do not have a CIC provision in our bylaws. So there's some
Point of order.
disconnect between
of order.
neighborhood associations and
Mark,
Yes.
you need to stop. If you cannot stop, you need to leave.
That's fine. That's fine. If you want to play this game, that's fine.
I am happy to think of questions, to maybe prompt kind of information out. This is a new board for me, so please let me know if I'm proposing something that's not culture of the CIC. But what I can do is between now and next month, I can put some prompting questions that I can send out to think about, and then I can also have attached some ideas. But I think what I'm trying to ask before I do that is, when you envision this toolbox, what were you envisioning? Because it could be implemented in many different ways. And so I just want to make sure that I'm not going sideways with something that I misread.
Send the questions.
I don't think that we've actually talked about this. You are bringing this up for the first time.
Oh, okay.
So and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know that any of us have an expectation of what this toolbox is.
Okay, that's a perfectly fine
Easy
answer.
to meet our expectations.
That's a perfectly fine answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
She doesn't speak for me. I have expectations.
Well, I'll think of some questions and I'll send them out to the group to kind of prompt. And as you know, we can't have, reply all conversations. So in my email, I'll kind of give you clear directions what to do with my
It
questions.
might be nice also to send them out to the chairs
Of the
they
neighborhood
can,
association.
or
Because
as
we're
your
not all the
CIC
same.
rep, if you go to your steering committee meeting, or if you have a meeting with a general membership, that could be brought up there. Joyce?
How is this relating to what Laura did at some of the neighborhood meetings, where she came with a bunch of questions and did a bunch of surveys at our neighborhood meetings, and we were told that we were going to get kind of results of those surveys. I don't think those ever came along, but I think some of the questions that Christina might be referring to were already asked of some of the CICs of some of our neighborhoods. I mean, not CICs, but some of our neighborhoods. So
It could be, or it could just be that surveys in and of themselves is part of the toolbox.
yes.
I don't know. Again, it's up to us to decide.
It's a new thing.
Yeah.
I'm here to help.
Thank you.
Right. It's kind of, I think there are two parts. There's getting people there, and then there's
Getting them back.
getting them back.
Yeah, I think
Right.
I really see the toolbox as how, and some of them are really low hanging fruit, and some of them may be like more up the ladder of participation, but how are ways to keep people engaged?
Any thoughts of questions that you might think would be a good question? Jesse?
I'm sorry, Christina. I'm still having a hard time drawing a clear line between what you're proposing and the public involvement plan. I know that we have in our goal 1 to create a public involvement plan, so that's done. It can always be revised and amended. And then we have goal 3, develop resources to help maintain active neighborhood associations and help reactivate inactive neighborhood associations. So there's kind of an inherent overlap between goal 1 and goal 3. But are you focusing more on goal 3? Okay, got it.
And they're actually, one of the goals uses the word toolbox, if I can remember. I'll have to look at it again, open it up. But I was kind of going to give direction. This was one of the last implementation projects from this public implementation plan. So trying to just understand what the expectations were and once again, I can give you a great list, and that doesn't necessarily gain ownership or allow us to move forward. So I just wanted to get some more clear direction, and maybe I can ask some of these questions online to the group, on email, and maybe that will help get people thinking.
Just to refresh what Jesse was saying, goal 3 we talked about developing resources to help maintain active neighborhood associations and developing a guide to activate. So we've got the words resources and guides were used, whether or not, I don't say toolkit, but buzzwords, it's all the same thing.
Bring people to meetings and keep them there. Well, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, grievance committee update. Mike?
Okay, the grievance committee met 2 times concerning the grievance that was before us. Just a little refresher on the process. The way it works, we investigate it, and then we create findings in writing and a non-binding decision in writing and recommendations, again, in writing, and present that to the CIC. And then the CIC can basically go through the same process again and comes up with its own non-binding decisions or recommendations. So after 2 meetings, we did tonight vote unanimously to dismiss this particular grievance. I was asked to write the written findings that led us to that decision, and then also some recommendations. So those are not done, so I'm not going to try to get into those. We will meet again before our CIC meeting next month and hopefully be able to adopt the written findings and recommendations and decision and bring that to this group. And even though our decision was to dismiss the grievance, I think there are some recommendations that can come out that kind of came out of the process that could be helpful going forward. So we'll try to pull some positive out of this. That's it.
Okay, thank you. All right, round table. Vern, we'll start.
I really don't have much, but I don't want to.
Wait, can you grab the mic?
I don't have anything really great here. We're having a executive meeting tomorrow with Hillendale and a couple of land use applications where consultants or whoever is going to present their preliminary pitch to us. And I'll leave the rest to Joyce.
Just one thing for Hillendale. Our meetings are listed in here. And this year, our July, which is the first Tuesday of the month, and this year it happens to be July 4th, so we'll be moving it to July 11th. And last year, we took our July meeting and we actually held it at Hillendale Park and had, watermelon and cookies. We actually got quite a few people out, so I think we'll probably be looking into doing that again this year. We're having our steering meeting tomorrow, as Vern said, so once that's confirmed, we'll notify whoever it is we need to notify on that.
So anybody who wants to join the party, that's going to be at the Wild Hare, which is in our neighborhood, so that, up by Bimart. So you're welcome to come. We order dinner about 6:30, and then our meeting was going to be at 7 o'clock. And again, it's just a couple little minor land use petitions people are going to be coming by. And of course, you get people at your meetings if there's a controversial land use issue coming up. So unfortunately, our last regularly scheduled quarterly meeting, the postcard did not come out in a timely manner. We received them after the meeting. So again, that was partially our fault for not getting it in time, but because it wasn't there in time, the printer or somebody from the city should have known that it wasn't going to get out in time and say, hey guys, you need to find some other channels for this meeting. Let's not put the expense into doing postcards, because getting the postcard 5 days after the event is way too late. So it was a poorly attended meeting, but we had some nice presentations. So,
I don't want to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I gave you the whole floor.
This is the Hillendale TBA team over here.
When things go wrong with any little task of the day or week or month, like postcards get out on time. We've had Roy has kind of stepped up and admitted that, yeah, I'll take the shot for it. He'll take the shot for it. But it wasn't all Roy by himself. I got involved and threw some delays into the whole process, working with, was it Katie Dufree? Or she's
Katie Durfee.
Durfee?
That's who was doing it.
And I thought it was a good thing to include on the card, but as it turns out sometimes, none of it worked out. But I did have a portion of fault in that whole delay. Don't want to blame it on Roy.
And the other thing that's happening in the Hillendale neighborhood, mostly is because of Mill Creek Canyon. So Barkley Hills is also on the other end of that part of the canyon with us. Metro has been doing a lot of work down in the canyon lately. They went in last weekend, last Thursday and Friday. The sheriff went down first, the big sheriff van, and talked to a lot of people down in the canyon, walking them out of the canyon, and big cleanups, a couple big dump loads, trucks full of debris taken out of the canyon. It's always a start. So, they're moving forward. We're all moving forward and looking forward to some bike and hiking trails down Mill Creek Canyon soon.
Nice. Great. Gordon?
Jesse probably knows more than I do. The only thing I can think of is there's going to be an IV pole in Waterboard Park this Saturday. I think it's from in the morning till noon or something.
8:30 to noon.
8:30 to noon.
Okay. Christina, did you have anything to add?
I don't have anything to add tonight.
Okay. Barbara?
I pass to Steve.
Mm-hmm. All right. Gaffney Lane, we met last Thursday, and we had a packed house, and a large amount of them were firemen, but it was great. We got to hear from the architects that did the design work for the new Fire Station 16 that's right up by the post office. That's in our neighborhood, so we got to see the project boards for that. If anyone's interested, shoot me an email, and I will be glad to forward those on. They've done a great job. It's going to be bigger, and it's going to be pretty nice. So that was one of our main topics. And then Tony Kunkel was there to give us some updates. And we really had some really good one-on-one with him and with our police liaisons. For those of you who might not know, the police now not only have an officer assigned, or someone from the police department assigned, but also one of the 3 traffic officers is assigned. They won't be able to make every meeting, but they'll be there frequently. So that's great because they have a little more hands-on information. They're now fully staffed with their 3 officers in their unmarked vehicles, and if you've seen the new white one, pretty nice looking.
Hopefully not in your rearview mirror.
Yeah, hopefully you saw them passing, not with the lights on. We did vote to do a trial run, and we're going to hold more frequent meetings. Starting in July, we're going to go every other month. So, and we'll probably be moving it to this, I think it was the second week in the month, but I'll make sure and get that information out. But we did want to try to hold them more often because we were only holding them quarterly, and so if you miss a meeting, it's 6 months again, and it was hard to keep track of when they were. And the place where we have them at the Garden Meadows Courtyard, they take really good care of us. They give us really nice food. They have refreshments, and they're open to having us more often, so we're going to take advantage of that.
Very good. We will have a steering committee meeting this month, which is a good thing because for the moment I am the only officer in Rivercrest. I was the vice chair and secretary. Harris was the chair and acting treasurer after the couple who were secretary and treasurer moved out of the neighborhood. And guess what? Harris lives in Walla Walla now. So we will be refilling the officers. We've already had a few requests for people who want to speak at our meeting in June. And I think once we'll meet in June, we'll have our picnic in August. I think when we meet again in November, we also will reopen the discussion to going to an every other month meeting schedule because, again, meeting quarterly, things slip between the cracks or don't get got around to. And I'll be the third in line on the ivy poles on Saturday because the top half of the park's in my neighborhood. That's all.
All right. Steve?
So Park Place had a steering committee meeting in April. There were about 40 people there. So obviously it was land use. There was a new development, another 6-house subdivision that is going to be in flight. So right now there's Bob LaSalle brought a map showing the infill subdivisions that are going through. There's about 60 new houses that are in flight. I think 40 of them are being built this summer. We've also got 120 houses at the old airfield that were approved before the ban on new development until there's a the 213 situation is. So we're going to be having a lot of people attend our meetings. So, and in May, we have, on May 15th, we have our general meeting, and we'll have election of officers. And we have our speaker is Rita Baker from the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council. So,
Can you also report, last meeting you had said you would get a hold of Brian?
I did.
Could you just update the members on that?
Okay, I talked to Brian, and he said that they are still holding meetings. According to our list here, they hold them at
Depot.
where is it?
Sorry, who's Brian?
Brian Boyce from Two Rivers. And they're holding their meetings at River Shore. So he told me that they were starting to hold meetings at the bistro, but whichever they are. They can't be well attended because there's not that many people there, but he says they are still having meetings. He just can't get to the Monday night meeting.
So was he interested in combining meetings, or he thought they were meeting their needs?
He thought that they were meeting their needs. There's not that many people there, and they would be totally inundated by Park Place
Right.
issues.
That's true.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
that's it.
Thank you.
Okay. Berkeley Hills, our next general meeting is May 9th, and it's Tony Kunkel's turn to come and talk to us for that. And then our meeting in July, we're working on having it at the Holmes House at Rose Farm, since that wonderful, newly refurbished
Heated and cooled
museum house is in our neighborhood. So if anybody from the CIC wants to visit Berkeley Hills, July might be a great time to do it because you'll get a chance to get a tour of Holmes House at Rose Farm at the same time. August 1st is National Night Out, for those of you who don't have it on your calendar yet. And as our tradition at Berkeley Hills, we follow that up on the following Saturday, which is August 5th, as our neighborhood picnic in Berkeley Hills, and celebrating the fun play structure in Berkeley Hills Park that we were able to do the ribbon cutting for last year. And it's getting lots of use.
Mark?
Yeah, that was it.
Mike?
Caulfield Neighborhood Association, our executive committee meeting is this coming Thursday night, and we'll set our agenda for our next meeting, which is May 23rd. And as you've already heard, the Oregon City Parks Foundation, working with Solve Oregon, is sponsoring an ivy pole in Waterboard Park this Saturday, 9 to 12. Registration starts at 8:30. We're meeting right by the Armory. You can park there, so it's 9 to 12. To make things easier, if you go to Solve's website, it's solveoregon.org, SOLVE Oregon.org. Right on the homepage, it says there's a list of events. The lowest one on the list is Waterboard Park Ivy Pole. You click on that. You go to the next page, it tells you about the event, and it gives you a Register Here button, which basically you're signing a waiver, which you have to sign in order to work. It's just going to make it easier Saturday morning. So please join us, and if you can join us, please sign up ahead of time. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Dennis?
Yes, pleased to announce, after 3 years, we had a meeting on the April 20th, and the small group of bylaws committee, a group of a dozen, not always in harmony, but we managed to bring the document to the general meeting. We had a large turnout of some 50-plus people, visitors and guests, and we overwhelmingly passed it, 39-8, and a small fortune for our community. And it was more than a win; it was actually more of a vote for the community and a vote for moving forward after such a long disarray of dysfunction. And so we're pleased, but we're also anticipating bringing back a lot of the community who have stayed away for various functions in the past, and now maybe we can unite them again. And that's the biggest topic. Oh, one other thing: we instituted also at the same meeting a door prize, a flower basket, and we raised some funds. And we provided a check to the Parks Foundation tonight, and to include in that fund for the Oscar Geisler park bench in the children's park. Aww. And so we're gradually building the pot, and we're soon to talk to the parks people, and they can set out to do the plaque, which they volunteered, and then we could set a site sometime in the summer for the installation of that bench and bring the family out. And for those who lived in Kenema, they know the gentleman who passed last August, Oscar Geisler, and it's a fitting tribute to the man for his advocacy for both parks and also our community.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, and congratulations.
Thanks,
Linda.
Well, Dennis Anderson, as being vice chair of the bylaws committee, did a phenomenal job of presenting the bylaws before the meeting. It was just a very nice, from the heart talk of what we're doing, and you should be congratulated. Did a great job. We passed, huge landslide, 39-8. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
Hi, Jesse.
Can you hear me? Sounds like it. Okay, so last month, the steering committee and the general meeting for the M&A was kind of combined on April 6th at 7 p.m. And we talked about participating in the antique fair, selling our snow cones this summer, as well as continuing our concerts in the park, fundraising, which we'll continue to do for this summer. We participated as a neighborhood in the Earth Day cleanup this last weekend, helping clean up the neighborhood. We had an update on the Public Works Master Plan proposal, and I'll move to this Thursday is a general meeting, 7 p.m. the fire station. We will have a police liaison update from Detective Justin Young, as well as a safety and life-saving information update from Clackamas Fire District Number 1. We're also having Tony Conkle, the city manager, come to talk about Oregon City accomplishments and the adopted goals, as well as the budget and various items. Also, the M&A is advocating for the preservation of the Buena Vista Clubhouse up in Atkinson Park. So I believe, I don't know, Christine, if you're working on that, but staff, I think, is helping out.
Phil.
So I'll give an update on that later. So again, that's this Thursday at 7 at the fire station. Also, last month, I believe I announced that the Camp Adair buildings near the Armory were up for historic landmark nomination, and that hearing was initially scheduled for April 25th. A few things have happened since I made that announcement, and long story short, the hearing was canceled and currently is not scheduled to happen at all. So the neighborhood is trying to get a hearing on the Camp Adair building preservation. So stay tuned on that. Thank you.
Bill?
South End Neighborhood Association's next regular meeting is going to be Thursday, May 18th. And the fire department is going to come and talk to us. We're also going to have a little bit of a land use presentation for a small subdivision in the Hazel Grove Westling Farm neighborhood. And then we're going to get a presentation from Mr. Kunkel. So it's going to be a lovely evening. So
Exciting no end.
I'm going to, for our South End Road cleanup, our ongoing project.
They let them walk.
South End Road is falling off the, but anyway, they're going to fix it. So they had the uphill side is closed, and so there's very little litter on that side. So we're going to have a half a road cleanup, and we're going to look into that when they close the road totally for reconstruction down in there, and we might just hurry up and run down there and clean up the other side. Thank you. What? I asked, and Ron Buck, who is the Adopt a Road guy for the county, and he didn't know for sure when that was going to happen. I know he said it's going to happen, but I think the weather has to cooperate a little bit longer without any rain so they can actually work on it. And if you've driven down Lynn Avenue, they paved that today.
They were paving it. Yes, it was a little hard to get down.
And they also recently installed signs for the South End Road detour going northbound. So it's just a matter of time.
Right. Karen had an add-on.
Okay, in addition to the beautiful William L. Holmes house at Rose Farm, my neighbors at Barkley Hills have a cemetery. Mountain View has a couple of events coming up. This Friday is the spring cleanup. All comers, you register at 9 a.m., work till about noon. You do need to call the cemetery office to let them know you're coming because there's a free lunch. You can email me if you don't have that number, or it's on the city website. And the more hands, the better, so hopefully see a few of you Friday at 9 a.m. The annual Memorial Day celebration will be held on Monday, May 9th at 10 a.m. If you haven't been to that, be there. It is beautiful. It is wonderfully done. There's a lot of community people are involved in it. It's a great way to honor veterans, and we usually have a very good speaker. I would suggest alternative transportation. Talk to Tom about a bike. The parking get there early. The parking can get a little tight. And we're trying to grow the Friends of the Cemetery group. So this coming Monday, May 8th, there's a choice of meetings at either 10 a.m. or 4:30 p.m. at the library in the community room to learn more about what you can do as a friend of the library. The cemetery. I've been a long day. We have a small core group, one of whom was Oscar. I attended one meeting, and poor Oscar died before the next meeting. It wasn't me. So we're trying to get more people actively involved so we can do more regular cleanups. We can take some work off staff by having a volunteer who helps schedule those cleanups, some restoration, a survey. Mountain View is the oldest public cemetery in the Oregon Territory, and many of the headstones there are in need of cleaning, repair, all kinds of help, leveling. So we want to try to get as many people as possible to start becoming involved in it to help us with the survey and then help with actually doing some of the restoration. So you can contact me about that, and that's Monday, May 8th in the library community room at either 10 a.m. or 4:30 p.m. for the working stiffs.
Okay, any other items? All right, we are adjourned. Oh, sorry, Joyce.
To ask about those of you in Park Place. So I know some of you may not have heard about the fire in their play structure.
Oh, yeah.
That burned a section, one of the tunnels that kind of connected actually to play structures. And so if you listen to PRAC, you would find out that the company that built those play structures is no longer in business, and so we cannot get a replacement part. So there's just going to not be that tunnel anymore, but just keeping your eyes and ears open for nefarious things going on in your neighborhood. See if we can't catch the people who do those kinds of crazy stunts that really affect everybody. Because when they affect the little kids, it affects all of us.
All right, we are adjourned.